Even C.S. Lewis admits that everything that Jesus said is complete nonsense if it isn't uttered by somebody who believes the world is about to come to an end. Only in that sense does it make sense to say, take no thought for the morrow. Don't care about possessions. Don't care about progress or literacy or improvement or thrift or any of the things that make culture possible. There's no point. It'll all be over real soon. Well, this is why culture and religion are eventually incompatible. And so those of us who want transcendence of the kind Zachary mentions, or something awe-inspiring beyond ourselves, should look through the Hubble telescope and see how wonderful that is. Or read a page of Stephen Hawking and see what awe-inspiring things there are in the cosmos. And then see if you can turn away from that and be impressed by the burning bush. Teaching the argument about evolution, because the way I learned it was by reading about the confrontation between Huxley and Wilberforce in London about the origin of species. Actually, it was in Oxford, in the origin of species. Huxley was Wilberforce's opponent. Wilberforce was the Bishop of Oxford. Huxley was Darwin's best friend, the man who coined the term agnostic. They had a great debate, and Huxley mopped the floor with the spokesman of the church. That's how I know how the argument goes. And in America, admittedly, 50 years later, good grief, but still, the same argument happens in Tennessee, in a courtroom this time. And again, they lose. By all means, teach the argument in that way. You just can't teach it in science class. And by the way, if there's going to be equal time for this stuff, then every church that gets any subsidy from the Faith-Based Initiative, or any tax break, has to teach evolution in Sunday school. We calculate that the human species, Homo sapiens, has been around now. Carl Sagan thought perhaps 200,000 years. I would say 100,000. Not more, not less. In order to believe the Christian message, you have to believe this. For those 100,000 years, people were born, died, usually, many of them, in childbirth, either the mother or the child. Life expectancy, perhaps 20 years, 25. Died of microorganisms they didn't know existed. Genesis doesn't mention them because the people who write Genesis don't know there are microorganisms. Earthquakes would have been terrifying. Tsunamis, volcanoes, mysterious events. War and famine superimposed on this. You can all fill out this picture for yourselves, I'm sure. That was our life. For tens of thousands of years, on and on it went. Maybe a gradual upward curve. Now here's what you have to believe. You have to believe that heaven watched that for 98,000 years. And after 98,000 years decided 2,000 years, it may be time to intervene. And the best way of doing that would be to have a filthy human sacrifice in a very remote part of Palestine. And the news of this has still not penetrated to the rest of the world, and I don't think will be believed when it does, and isn't believed by me, and can't be believed by a thinking person. Thank you. There is, in theory, nothing to choose between any kind of religion or any version of it. My way of phrasing it is that they're all, in their separate and wonderful ways, equal glimpses of the same untruth. And therefore it needn't particularly matter whether you're a Quaker or, say, a Mormon or a Shia Muslim or a worshipper of the Emperor of Japan. Because the illusion is the same in each case, and the demand that you surrender what is, in my view, your most precious faculty, that's your ability to reason, and your ability to practice self-doubt and self-criticism and skepticism. That, in other words, that you will take something on faith and expect to be praised and respected for doing so. We do it all the time ourselves. You hear it all the time on television and in American politics. People are praised for having faith, just for having it. Doesn't matter what it is. In fact, President Eisenhower said, it's really important to have a religious belief, and I don't mind what it is either. Because just the ability to surrender your mind is enough. Well, I know that I'm going to have to put up with a lot of this, and I know that it is innate in us. That's true. It's not something that can be extirpated or that should be extirpated, as long as our prefrontal lobes are too small and our adrenaline glands are slightly too big. And we show all the other signs of what Darwin calls the lowly stamp of our origin. We are half a chromosome away from chimpanzees, and our religious beliefs show that. Religion is what you would expect if it had been made up by such a tribe. What I do think we can contest, and must contest, is the idea that this irrationality needs to be respected or revered. That's asking too bloody much, if you ask me. You can't be made to go to a church here. The government can't finance one. I mean, where I was born, which you can probably tell was in England, the Queen is the head of the church, as well as of the armed forces and the state. And on her demise, the instant of her decease, her slobbering, chinless dauphin of a son will not only become the head of the state and the armed forces, but the head of the Church of England. It's enough to make a cat laugh, isn't it? And I have to pay tax, or would if I still lived there, have to pay taxes. So that's what you get when you found a church on the family values of fucking Henry VIII. Why does the British National Health Service never run out of blood, though you're not allowed to charge for it? You have to give it free. Never runs out of blood. Because people like to give blood. They want to feel useful. I like to do it. I like it very much. And I'm not a masochist, and I don't particularly like being stuck. But I like the way that I lose, if someone gains a pint and I don't lose one, because I replenish it quite quickly. Someone's instantly better off. I haven't had to abnegate myself by giving anything away. I like the fact that I'm helping someone who I don't know. And as it happens, I have a very rare blood group, indeed. And one day I'm going to have to count on other people feeling the same way. So human solidarity will get you quite a long way ethically. And there's every reason why that should be in our genes, in our, so to speak, inscribed. We wouldn't have got this far if we didn't have these qualities. To say we couldn't have them without celestial permission seems to me to be simply slavish. And if we're all made in God's image, then how come there are so many sociopaths who don't notice the existence of other people, or so many psychopaths for whom it's a positive pleasure to inflict pain? All of these are easily solved questions if you make the assumption of evolution by natural selection and consider us as an animal species. If you detect the finger of God in all this, you invent myriad problems that do not exist and cannot be solved. We have better and more elegant explanations for everything that happens in our cosmos and in our biology now. And if we'd had these to begin with, there would never have been a foothold for the death cult of Christianity or Islam or Judaism. Martin Luther did say, it was one of his proudest statements, I am a man of one book. Loyola says we sacrifice the intellect to God. Again, why am I supposed to respect these appalling sayings? But, I mean, every year on the Feast of Eid, which is roughly the same, the Muslim version, it's exactly the same story, but it's celebrated with even more fanaticism. People kill a sheep in praise of Abraham's willingness to conduct a human sacrifice on his son. They think that's the most wonderful moral story they can think of. Now, here's where I part company. I don't think that someone's willingness to slaughter his son because he's hearing voices in his head is a great example of moral suasion. And maybe there's something I'm missing here. But I have a terrible feeling that those who do think that that surrender, that willingness to commit murder, to commit infanticide under a psychopathic delusion is a sign of virtue. And if that was not the case, I would not have had to write a book showing that religion is a root of evil, which it is, as I've just demonstrated. Thank you.